seed in the NCAA tournament. How did this come about? Let's talk about it, and let's get going here on Locked On Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right. This was an awesome weekend all the way around for the University of Arizona football fans, which we'll get to, University of Arizona basketball fans. But first, we've got to talk about the game of the season for the U of A. All right. Now, it's important to put what Arizona did into context because Arizona came into this week coming fresh off a loss to a kind of a humiliating loss to Oregon, and the previous week, another humiliating loss to Washington State. Just bad stuff all the way around for Arizona. And the Washington State win, especially because, well, I mean, let's be honest here. It's Washington State and who's at McHale. You don't expect that to happen. So Arizona then takes care of USC. And, in all fairness, it's a, with USC, USC's a pretty good team, but you really don't know. You don't really know where your wares are going to be tested until you play UCLA, a team that's in the top 5 or 10 in the country. They're very, very good, obviously. And Arizona absolutely made it out. They started slow, and I'll be honest with you. When Jalen Clark when Jalen Clark was on Azuolas Tubelis to start the game, or Azuolas Tubelis was on Jalen Clark, I'll be honest with you, I was a little nervous about it. I didn't love that matchup. I didn't love that matchup at all for Arizona, and it started out tough because Jalen Clark was basically going right at Zoo, had for 6 of their first 8 points, and then you never really heard from Jalen Clark again, and that was a very impressive aspect to this game. Now, but Arizona did not play well in the first half. Heck, you could make the case that Arizona did not play well the entire game, and they still got the victory. So how did they get the victory? First thing is this team figured out a way to win and to win at another team's pace. And that, first of all, that's a big, big thing for Arizona. You can't really minimize that. And I think one thing that you got to look at and say to yourself is, well, Arizona has to, Arizona generally wants to play an up-tempo game. But, UCLA wasn't going to allow that. UCLA is one of the best defensive teams in the country. And keep in mind as well, they also have one of the best non-turnover rates in the entire country as well. So that's a big, big thing that you need to look at. Now, but Arizona was able to beat them the way that Arizona's been able to beat so many teams by going into the interior. And again, this wasn't one of those 40-25 games we've talked about, where the big men need to, where the big men don't have these gaudy numbers. But when you're only scoring, in the 60s or 50s, then you have to be able to manufacture offense any way you can manufacture offense. And Arizona did just that with, again, Azuolas Tubelis and Oumar Ballo finished with about 30 and 16. But at the same time, let's be honest about what we also saw out there. This was a very impactful 30 and 16. This was a 30 and 16 where Tubelis just kind of wore on Bona towards the end of the game. And on top of that, Azuolas Tubelis did not play well in the first half. I think that's pretty apparent, but he was ready to rock and roll in the second half. And Tommy Lloyd, the wizard that is Tommy Lloyd, put Azuolas Tubelis in pick and roll situations where he was able to essentially be involved in the game, exert what he wants to exert, what he wanted to exert, and be able to read the defense. And that's where Tommy Lloyd is an absolute genius, because sometimes Azuolas can be a little passive. We've seen that in March. And when things don't go great, he starts looking at himself a little bit, feeling a little uncomfortable. That did not happen here. And Tommy Lloyd, I think, is a big, big reason why that didn't happen here. So, again, big tip of the cap to Azuolas Tubelis and to Oumar Ballo. Let's talk now about the perimeter and how we got here. Courtney Ramey. Loved what I saw from Courtney Ramey. Now, again, at this point, he's kind of a three-point shooter, but he's a guy who can pull up off the he's a guy who can pull up off the bounce a little bit and get those three-pointers going. It was a very impressive performance there by Courtney Ramey, and they were big shots. They were big shots out there, and that's what you like to see. That's what we all like to see, are the big shots, the ones that really matter when the going gets tough, and he was able to do just that. Now, some of the other, Pelle Larsson played very good defense on Jaime Jaquez, so we got to give Pelle that for sure. That was that was good stuff that Pelle did. But one thing that you have to also look at, though, with Pelle is when he's just dribbling once or twice, he's good to go. But when he starts dribbling more, that's when it becomes a problem. And, we've seen that a number of different times this year, where he really gets into trying to dribble a little too much, or whatever the case may be, and it becomes an issue. So you got to worry about that. And UCLA was hoping that Pelle would they were leaving him open for a reason. UCLA wanted him to be able to get the ball so then they could trap him. And so Arizona's got to figure something out at the end of games, because it's not ideal with the way that Larsson plays and the way that it's not ideal with the way that Larsson plays, and the Kirk Kriisa being kind of a lack of great offensive ball handler at the end of games. That's obviously not something you like to see. But either way, a win is a win. They both did some pretty good things right here, and I think that's what's exciting about. Arizona, for this Arizona squad right now. Now, a couple of the other things that I think we all need to keep a close eye on is the bench. I think at this stage in the game, and I agree with this. Don't get me wrong. I love the Peaks. I love Henry Vasar. I love Dylan Anderson. But we're also kind of at the stage now where I think it's fair to say that they've kind of been put to the side a little bit there with everything. In that, and you know what? It's okay, because the last thing you want, especially when guys are going through things, the last thing you want is to have to deal with a guy's confidence, where he's really at in the grand scheme of things, all of that. So that's I totally get that from a Lloyd point of view. And keep in mind too, these are obviously guys in the Peaks that have a lot of ability. They're going to be needed next year. So it makes perfect sense to me that maybe cut back their minutes a little bit. The season's starting to wind down. Let's just kind of see where Arizona is in the grand scheme of things, and and kind of go from there. So, again, we'll find out exactly where Arizona is, but I think you got to feel pretty comfortable right now, if you're an Arizona fan, that things are ending up right for them. Now, let's talk then about what this win means, because think about it this way: you've got Arizona right now, and you've got Arizona has now wins over Tennessee, which is obviously a big one, over Tennessee, over UCLA. And let's not minimize these for, at any point. These are big time wins right there for Arizona. And there's really no other way that you can look around it. These are just big time wins for the Cats, and they're going to continue to be big time wins. That's where that's where I think people need to, slow their roll a little bit here. And that these are wins that are not, you can't really take away from them. These are both going to be top 2-3 seeds going forward. So again, keep that in mind for sure. Now, when it comes to the rest of this squad right here, let's be honest here. It's going to be fascinating to find out where exactly they go, but this is a bounce back. This was the kind of bounce back win that Arizona 100% needed. Arizona needed to be able to get a win like this where, just essentially it was, Arizona was basically in it the entire game, and they took care of what they needed to take care of at the end. That's what I think is exciting about this right now. Now so going forward, you got the Washington schools, which should be fascinating. But Arizona answered the questions that they needed to answer, and they not only that, they answered them in a big, big way. And I think that's what's exciting about this entire squad. And it's a resilient bunch too, and you could tell they take a lot of that cue from Tommy Lloyd, which is certainly something that you understand taking it from your head coach. But again, big, big win for Arizona. All right. Now, let me tell you about LinkedIn. Everybody knows about LinkedIn, and there's a reason that everybody knows about LinkedIn. It's because LinkedIn works. I know so many people that have gotten jobs from LinkedIn. I'm sure you do as well. You probably have gotten a job from LinkedIn, and it makes perfect sense because, if you know somebody that got a job through LinkedIn, you got a job through LinkedIn, it's because it works. So again, check it out. LinkedIn, great stuff. I'll be right back with you, and we're going to talk about some huge, huge Arizona football news going forward. So come right back with us on Locked On Wildcats. Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk about Arizona football. Arizona football we're kind of at the point now where Arizona football, that they're going to be able to recruit under Jedd Fisch. And the worst kept secret in the world is now out, in that Jedd Fisch is in the Leviticus Su'a, 4-star kid, has now committed to the University of Arizona, and that is obviously big time news. Now you're saying, what do you get in him? Well, you get a couple different things in him. First, you get a player who in Leviticus Su'a can play pretty much all three linebacker spots. He can play pretty much all three linebacker spots. He can essentially do what you need him to be able to do out there. And I think that's an exciting part of his MO right there. Now, I think there's a few other things that you got to keep in mind as well. That Arizona now has, I almost said severely, has drastically upgraded its linebacking core, which is a good thing. Arizona needed to get better at the linebacker spot. You had Jacob Manu last year, and then basically a bunch of guys who were limited. Arizona needed to upgrade right there, and they certainly did upgrade. So good stuff right there from the University of Arizona. Jedd Fisch has said, recruiting will be the lifeblood of this program, and so far, so well. He's certainly shown that that is the case, and that nobody will outwork them. And getting Su'a in is a big deal, because anybody that watched Arizona last year knows for a fact that you needed to be able to upgrade the defense, and you needed to be able to upgrade the defense in a big way. And while I'm still a little concerned about the pass rusher position, I watched this squad though, and I think that this is going to be a team that is going to be significantly better on the defensive side of the ball. That's, again, big, big get for Jedd Fisch. And people need to remember this, that while Jedd Fisch is upgrading this team, there's still work to be done, but it's going to take some time. Again, But I still see 7 wins for this team. You had a lot of people last year that, thought, 2-3 wins, whatever the case may be. This team is better this year. This team is, I expect to be kind of a difference maker on defense, to be honest with you. I think there's a lot to like about this squad. Now, where are you going to – there's a couple things that you still got to look at. Where's the pass rush going to come from? I think you've helped out on the D-line, but you also got to remember that there are still some things out there that you got to work on, and the D-line, I think, is one of them, especially at that pass rusher position. So that obviously is something that Arizona needs to keep an eye on, but upgrading the linebacker spot, arguably the most important spot on the defense, was a big get for Arizona, and I think it's something that Jedd Fisch is certainly going to be able to build on. So again, we'll be able to check that one out right there. Now, you might say to yourself, Mike, what does this team need to do on the rest of the defensive side of the ball? Well, you know what? Glad you asked. We'll come right back with you, and we're going to break that one down. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now we've got a ton of stuff to get to about the pass rush situation here, because that's still something that needs to be addressed. You got to still figure out what exactly is going to go on with the pass rush, because that, again, that's still something that, is less than ideal. Now, you might say to yourself, what do you have to do? I would say the first thing you got to do with the pass rush is you got to find somebody explosive right there. Now, again, those guys are there for sure. But, right now it's kind of Deuce Davis as the only guy that's really shown some real quick twitch off the edge. So that's something you're going to have to get a little bit better there as well. But after that, then you got, then it's kind of a, a committee by approach, where you're going to have to basically throw some guys in. Not only are you going to have to throw some guys in there, you're going to probably have to try to get some rush off somebody else. But there's a ton of different stuff there to actually say you got something to work with there. And I think that's an exciting part about Arizona right now, is that there are things to work with, and there weren't things to work with there in the past. So that certainly is something good. But Jedd Fisch is going to have to work the portal. I don't think there's any way around that. He's going to have to work the portal. He's going to have to find out. He's going to have to find some guys that can really make an impact, because, again, there are some positions there where you're just not good enough at. But I also think that you're also watching a team who is headed in the right direction, and offensively, this team's fantastic. I look for a squad that right here that is going to put up 20 points a game on a very regular basis, or 30 plus points a game on a very regular basis. And not only are you going to put up 30 points per game on a regular basis, I think that it's going to be more of an opportunistic defense as well. I think it's going to be a team that not only are they're better, which they certainly are, but they're going to be able to help the offense out in a big way. And if you can help the offense out in a big way, that is obviously good. But right now, this was an awesome weekend for Arizona athletics as a whole. Quite frankly, I don't think that you can I don't think that you could have really asked for anything better if you're an Arizona fan than what Arizona got right here. And again, a reminder that it's awesome to back the A. Everybody is back in the A, and there's a reason that everybody is back in the A. And with the way things are going, with the way that Jedd Fisch has made these hires, there's a lot to like right there. So again, we'll be back with you tomorrow. We're going to talk more about Arizona football, what all of this means, get you ready, then start getting you ready for the week coming up as well. But as always, can't thank you all enough right there for listening to the Locked On Wildcats podcast. Again, we're in day by day, every single day mode, and we will be right back with you tomorrow. Have a great and happy Monday, and we'll be back with you tomorrow. You have been listening to you've been listening to the